So 3 screws hold these little clips in place. And these little clips do 2 jobs, because they're holding the little cam in place, but the raised piece of these clips is providing some pressure against something, presumably this ring. Anyway, let's get this apart. Let's tip that cam out, and these pieces need to be cleaned. They're quite dirty. This is nickel plated brass, I think, and this is certainly just brass. I don't think this piece is steel, but it was brass. I might be wrong. Find out. No, it's brass. Just testing it on a magnet. They must have done a particularly good job of nickel plating them. I don't remember seeing much sign of brassing on these pieces. Right, see if I can just flatten out one of these cotton buds enough to get it to run around that track. That's better. Just to lift out any dust and contamination. And then this ring here, well you certainly need to have some lubricant on this cam. It tends to make rattling noises if it's entirely dry. Chattering noises almost like those chatter rings that the kids were playing with 30 years ago. I'll just check the action of that, make sure it's smooth. That's good. I'm just going to give that a very light wipe with some molybdenum paste. And on the cam surface here where the pin for the rangefinder follows that, we'll put some on there. That's good. Now these clips can go back in place. I'll just give these a birthday too with a bit of solvent. Just wanting to make sure there's no grit trapped in amongst all that grease. Of course, I've got that big wavy spring to worry about yet. Getting that in position. It probably doesn't want to stay in position. Right, those pieces are all in place. Yeah, that moves freely, that's good. What do we got left? A couple of bits. Start with this. Oh yes, this is pretty grimy. As you can probably guess, you go through an awful lot of cotton buds working on a camera, cleaning everything that needs to be cleaned. Well, this is fairly light, this spring, which probably means that it's fairly easy to distort into a useless shape, so I've got to be pretty careful with this. I'm just trying to get its surfaces cleaned up because it's grimy and I can't tell whether that's corrosion. Certainly an odd sort of a wavy washer. Just checking the location of this, I don't believe it goes there. Just checking the action of these various things. These little tabs here, they will operate, they will act on this ring here. And this spring must act on the other side of this. So it must surround this piece, and I would think it would be useful to have one edge of that under that lever and have the open edge on the opposite side. Something like that. like that. Oh, that bloody thing's come out. I'm going to have to keep this outside ring tension down here because it's positioned correctly while I get all this other stuff back where it should be. As usual with working on old cameras, it would probably be handy to have 3 or 4 hands. Still, I'm sure some nimble-fingered Fräulein could have put this together in Germany 60 years ago. I can probably do it today. Everything's just sitting there. What else have I got to achieve? Well, one thing I've got to achieve at this point, I'm busy holding this ring down here with tension, is this tab on the mount here. I have to line that up with this tab here on the focus scale ring so that everything will align. So I've got to make sure I've got this round the right way. That goes that way, and my tab is currently facing there. Is that narrow one? I need it to be there. Can I get this all on there in one go? It's all but it's in. Okay, so it's all in place. Get a couple of screws down here to hold everything together and find out if I've won or not. This is certainly more complex than dealing with the same sorts of tasks on the later lenses, the retina reflex type cameras. That's good. I like that action. Focus seems smooth. Depth of field pointers. Why are they wearing there? Oh, it's because it's coupled to that. Of course it is. Stupid bugger. That's all good then. That's all moving smoothly. I can get those screws in there. And turn my attention to the lens capsule itself. That's all moving much smoother now. Quite happy with the state of that. The lens capsule, eh? Let's have a look at this. Well, there's certainly a blob of something black on that lens there. Looks to me suspiciously like paint that somebody'd put solvent of some sort on there and it had run down inside and then dried there. So I want that off. This whole front lens piece here is screwed into the tube. I don't think there's a screw locking it anywhere. So that piece I want to unscrew. So, friction tools next. Well, that rear lens group, I said there were blobs or something there. As it turns out, that is separation. That's obviously a cemented pair in this rear mount, and that's separation in there. There's nothing I can do about that. Separation is a fault that looks worse than it is in practice. Very likely it'll have very minimal effect on the image quality, even though it looks bad to the eye. So that's the rear group out of the mount, but I haven't been able to get the front group out yet. I'm going to put a drop of acetone down in here in case there's some lacquer holding that in position, and then try the friction tool again. Yes, that did it. A little drop of acetone down the sides of the thread, again in with the friction tool, and that front lens group is unscrewed. Now it means I've got free access to the helical thread here, which needs to be cleaned. Check the action of that diaphragm there, which moves smoothly enough. It's got patches on it, it's got marks on it like corrosion, I think. They might be oil, they look more like corrosion. It's moving smoothly. There's nothing really I can do about corrosion in a place like that, except to clean away any contaminants. See what happens if I clean that with a bit of naphtha. See if anything's coming away. Not an awful lot. Oh, they do look better. Right, well, I'll continue that. I'll swab these with naphtha. You have to be very careful with these diaphragm blades. They're reasonably delicate, and the diaphragm is a bugger to reassemble if you take it apart. So usually I choose not to, and certainly in a case like this there's no serious problem with them. There's no reason to go looking for trouble. This seems fine. Let's deal with this lens helical here and see if I can clean that. This is by no means a bad example. The focus helical here moved smoothly enough. It was just probably had a little bit more resistance than I would normally like. It's by no means a serious problem. Just cleaning the lens mount around the back. It's a little bit grimy. That seems okay. Right, the outer part of the helical. It seems okay. Let's see if that runs on there smoothly. Multi-start thread, of course. Yeah, that's fine. It moves well. So, I think the glass capsules can go back in last of all. Have a look at that, get this back in the mount and worry about the other. Oh, at least this shouldn't be too hard to get back in there. Right, I'll get my helical grease, get this back in there, and then turn my attention to the glass. Well, the battery got tired and decided to have a sleep, I think, so I'm not sure how much footage I lost there. Never mind. Now, as I run the cotton bud over that glass, it does not feel smooth. That may mean there is surface contaminants on that glass, and if there are, it may well mean that they will come away. That's a really odd feel. I don't even know what it would be. Well, the glass looks much better. Certainly must have had something on it. It's not as though there's any obvious sign of sticky crap elsewhere, so it's not as though I can say, oh, somebody splashed it with this or that sticky drink. That's a really odd feel. Oh, that looks miles better than it did. I'll put the cone, that washer back in there. I'll screw this cone in place, screw it down tight so that lens is held firmly. And see how I get on. Right, where's the appropriate friction tool for that? This size. That's it. Oh, that lens looks great now. I've got no idea what that contaminant was. With it held firmly in the mount, I can clean it easier. Oh, that's great. That's a very pleasant surprise. That's our front component. Now this rear component, this has got separation in it. I'm not going to be able to do anything about that. At least I can clean the inner and outer surfaces of the glass. The separation's really quite an odd pattern. It's not something I'm familiar seeing. But certainly it is separation. Yeah, cast at an angle, those patches look dark. It's like, see if I can get you where you could see it. I don't know whether I can. Yeah, you can see those spots there. You see two spots, here and here. They look like spots. When the light's running through them at an angle like that, they look like spots. When you're facing it clear on, they disappear. And that's reflection. You're seeing those spots are a reflection or a refraction or something going on there at that surface. And that's at the certainly is at the balsam layer. And I've never seen separation that looked like that before. Common patterns of separation is when the whole lens is pretty much separated, or mostly, and you end up with a rainbow pattern across the lens. And another common pattern is when you see a little bright asterisk in the lens, and that is caused by separation, and it just means there's a pinpoint separation, and typically it looks like an asterisk. This doesn't. This looks like little droplets running in from the edge of the lens. Originally I thought that may be the result of solvent having run in there from inappropriate cleaning techniques, but I don't think that's the case at all. The only solvent that would cause a problem with balsam would probably be something like acetone, and I'm not sure. I don't think it would soak in from the outside without causing an awful lot of other signs that you could easily see, and there I'm thinking of paint. If you'd splashed that much acetone around that it was able to affect the balsam around the edge of the lens, it would mean that it would also have washed off paint from all over the place, and that would be much more obvious. There's no sign of that. So I don't think that someone has splashed this with acetone in an effort to clean things, and that's what I'm seeing. It is simply balsam failure. However, one way or the other, that's a nuisance. Yes, it's certainly odd. Certainly odd. Okay. I need to get this back into here. So, two things to line up. One is the coupling for the aperture setting lever. So I put a little bit of molybdenum paste down there. And second is where this little channel is here, this runs on a post in the lens mount. And it stops this rotating, so it means that the lens moves forward or backwards. It doesn't just rotate as you turn the focus scale ring. Now if I can get these lined up at the same time, I can see they're going to be a problem. I'm going to cheat. I'll put a little cotton bud in the diaphragm, or will I? No, I can't. There's not enough space between that and the lens. I won't. Need to get the aperture settings lever coupled first, and then rotate this in the mount to get the other piece in place. Oh, I can actually see what I'm doing here, which is unusual. Normally there's not enough space. That's one thing. And the aperture setting lever is where? It is there. Oh, is that in place? I think it might be. Let's find out. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay, I need the focus scale ring on there next. No, I don't need the outer helical is what I need on there next. So I'll put that carefully down without knocking that out. Find something to put it on so it stays there while I work on it. That'll do. Put some grease on the outer helical. Normally I just put this in about 5 spots around the helical. You don't need to clog the threads entirely with helical grease, and this should just screw straight on there, and it does. Okay, that's in position. I'll put its locating screws and washers in place to hold it there, and then the focus adjustment of this will only be able to be done once this is on the camera, because I'll be wanting to check the focus at the film plane. It's absolutely fruitless deciding that you can check the focus simply by working using the rangefinder, because the rangefinder will not give you proper information for that purpose. The rangefinder follows the cam in the mount here. It does not follow the position of the glass lens components itself. Right. Yeah, well, that moves through the full focus range and it's nice and smooth. So I'll screw in the front components. Let's do that down lightly with a friction tool, because I may well be in again. And that can be tested on the camera when I get to that point. Otherwise, that particular part of the job is done. This front filter mount ring screws over the top of this piece here, so it's just a just screws on like that, and of course it's screwed on tight, finger tight. You don't need to be using tools. And the UV filter here, that would screw on the front of that again. So I'll put that lens aside for the moment, because for the present point that's done, and really my next task is to carry on with the camera body, because once I've got the camera body serviced I can put the shutter and everything back into the camera body, put the lens on the shutter and test for focus.